Well, if you're going to ask me that question, I'm going to ask you, why does it say Babylon is fallen if it's the third angel?
No, I'm only asking because I know that the fourth angel comes and empowers the third angel.
Okay.
The third angel was message, then why? Or is it all together? I'm just trying to make sure we're okay.
When Revelation 18 comes down, what's the first words you hear? What angel's message are you hearing? The first words you're hearing?
Come down with great glory.
The first words.
And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory.
But what's the words?
What do you mean, what's the words?
Read on.
And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. So that's the second angel's message.
So to answer your question, Karina, when this angel comes down, the wording is the wording of the second. So you know it's not as straightforward to just say it's the wording of the third. It's not just the third. There's some more complexity in it. And the complexity is, when he comes down, he's not coming as a single event at the Sunday law, which is what we generally understand it to be.
So
he's going to come.
Power, the second angel.
He's going to. All of this empowers the third angel. So that's standard Adventist. But what we tend to teach is when he comes down, he's just going to say a whole heap of things at the Sunday law, and everything's going to be okay. But you can see that it's split out. That there's a first, a second, and a third.
The one can just say glory as well. That third God is glory as well. So if you want to put it in there, see what it's equal as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And the first angel mentioned the Spirit of God and glory.
I haven't got all the passages in front of me because I want to go to. But you can nail it down even more, because when this angel comes down, he lightens the earth with his glory. And what it says that. So who is the first? You know that he's prefiguring or typifying this one. The first angel's message lightens the earth with his glory. And then a test begins. The test begins is when you eat manna. Or when you eat the little book in accordance to Revelation 10. When you eat the book, then you're going to be tested. The three-step testing process begins. So all I'm saying is this. So when 18 comes down, it's going to come in a progressive step. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. What happens after 1989 now?
Before I do that, I just want to go back to where we were. The 7 thunders were fulfilled in Millerite history. They're going to be fulfilled again. And so I want to read this passage back again, because this is, we said, when the third angel's message.
Before we go further, what are the events?
I'm not going further, I'm going back. I want to go back to show the parable of the 10 virgins first.
No, what were the events associated with the 7 thunders? Because you said.
Oh, I'm not. I don't want to get bogged down into that study. All I want to show is.
Just a quick overview. What were the events associated with the 7 thunders?
What I'm going to say is this. The only reason I picked it up to bring out those points is because they were fulfilled and they're going to be future events. I don't want to spend time going through the events. I just want to point out the fact that they have been fulfilled and they're future events. And she's going to say the same thing about the parable of the 10 virgins, which is the passage that we're reading. But when she makes that statement, it's in connection with the empowerment of the third, which is why we've introduced this. So when the parable of the 10 virgins is repeated, it's in the context or the backdrop of this history and its empowerment. When the third angel's message is preached, as it should be, power attends its proclamation and it becomes an abiding influence. We spoke about that earlier in our study, what an abiding influence is. It must be attended with divine power, it will accomplish nothing. I am often referred to the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 of them were wise, 5 were foolish. This parable has been. So when was it fulfilled? It was fulfilled in this history here, has been, and then it says, will be fulfilled. So where would we say it will be fulfilled to the very letter when she's connecting all of this to the empowerment of the third? So my argument is, we know it's going to be fulfilled. The question is how. So if we had a little diagram like this, and we said this, we said 1798 to 1844, and we said here, the time of the end to the second advent, and this is the time of the end, and it was perfectly fulfilled here. When is it going to be perfectly fulfilled in the future? Because she says it's going to be, so we all agree that it will be. So we've got two options. We can either get this parable and say, right from this point here, it's going to be perfectly fulfilled in all of this history, in some kind of, some personal experience way, where you're not going to attach it to events, or you're going to take this model here, which we've shown here, printed it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, and if number 1 is attached to the time of the end, and number 4 is attached to the shut door, and that's exactly what's being done here in this history. In fact, I'm not going to put second advent. I'm going to put Sunday law here, because this is the close of probation for God's people. Why would we not say that this is going to be attached to this, right here? That this was, will be. And the reason most of us can't do that is because we turn this into a single event, make it into the future because it's only the Sunday law issue, and we do that because we don't understand the time of the end. If you understood the time of the end, you'll know where to put the parable of the 10 virgins when it says it will be repeated to the very letter. You'll know where to locate it because you could look back and say, when did it start last time? It started at the time of the end, so it's going to start at the time of the end.
So the parable of the 10 virgins started again for our time in 1989.
Yeah. This parable has been and will be fulfilled to the very letter, for it has a special application to this time, and like the third angel's message, has been fulfilled and will continue to be present truth till the close of time. And then she talks about the parable of the 10 virgins. So that's the proof that you've asked for. That I don't know if it's sufficient to show that the parable of the 10 virgins was fulfilled in Millerite history, and it's going to be fulfilled in our history. It was and will be, because she attaches this history and lines it up with the empowerment of it. When you go to the empowerment, you see a number 2 and a number 3, and therefore you must see a number 1. You can see in the verses, in verse 1, it talks about the earth being lightened up with its glory. You can see that in this history. Corinne has mentioned that she can actually see it in the wording of Revelation 14 verse 6. So you know when the third angel's message is empowered here, you're going to go through a 3-step testing process, as you did here, and because it's the everlasting gospel never changes. It's always the same 3-step testing process. And if it was fulfilled here, it's going to be fulfilled here. So that's why we're saying that the parable of the 10 virgins will be fulfilled to the very letter in our history, beginning in 1989. So I don't know if that's sufficient proof for you to see just this bit so far. But there wasn't the proof that I was trying to draw attention to is about the parable of the 10 virgins, not to 1989 itself, but the parable of the 10 virgins begins here and ends here, and this history here is a 4-step process, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the everlasting gospel, and that's going to get repeated at the end of the world to the very letter. You're going to see the 4 same steps.
So if it was only 46 years from 1798 to 1844.
So we don't have time any longer. We're not taking every single element and saying every single bit. We're taking it in as events. We're taking these events and pulling them out and seeing how they're going to be fulfilled at the end of the world. Ellen White does the same. Ellen White says, as an example, that the triumphal entry of Christ. So when Christ comes in the triumphal entry in his last week, and he goes to Jerusalem riding on the ass, she says that that was a typification of this event here. So I don't know if you're familiar with that statement. So it's found in this, I think it's in Desire of Ages. Can someone maybe pull that up? You can triumphal entry and midnight cry. You should put it up. Someone might have a statement to them. They'll put the text up. If you know that, you're not going to look for a literal donkey in this history. Christ isn't certainly going to be riding it. People aren't going to be waving palm branches. But you're taking the principles of that event and seeing what the lesson's been taught and bringing it into the future. So when we're taking this history and bringing it into the future, we're not saying that was 46 years, so we're exactly 46 years. We're not saying something happened here in Egypt, literal Egypt, and literal Turkey, that something's going to happen in literal Egypt, literal Turkey. We're taking these principles and we're applying them at the end of the world as event, just in the same way that Christ does, in many, many different ways. As it was in the days of Noah, is it going to be exactly the same at the end of the world? No, we're not building an ark. There's not going to be a flood. But there are principles, the key thoughts of that generation which we're drawing out. Do you find the passage?
Well, is it related to midnight cry? Does she mention midnight cry?
I think so. If they don't find the passage now, I'll find it later on.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, go.
The midnight cry was not so much carried by argument, though the scripture proof was clear and conclusive. They went with it an impelling power that moved the soul. There was no doubt, no question. Upon the occasion of Christ's entry into Jerusalem, people,
Yeah, carry.
the people who were assembled from all parts of the land to keep the feast flocked to the Mount of Olives, and as they joined the throng that were escorting Jesus, they caught the inspiration of the hour and helped to swell the shout, "Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord." Matthew 21:9.
Okay. Sorry?
In like manner, did unbelievers who flocked to the Adventist meetings, some from curiosity, some merely by ridicule, feeling the convincing power attending the message, "Behold, the bridegroom comes." Okay,
so she's paralleling the midnight cry with the triumphal entry, and she's telling you what threads to draw out of that, how those events are paralleling. So, in the same way that she does that, that's the same way that I'm saying we're doing it. That you pull out these parallel events and see how they're going to be fulfilled at the end of the world. They're not going to be fulfilled in exactly all the minutiae of the details, just as it wasn't between the triumphal entry and the midnight cry, but they're the same event. You can pick up many parallel pieces, the threads of information, and get great light from that. But all the, it's not in the same country, no one's putting their clothes out, there's no literal donkey, there's no one who's been resurrected literally. There's lots of things that aren't exactly the same. But those thoughts and does that make sense? How we're going to be putting this out. So
that was for SP.
So I'm going to ask you, Karina, because you asked a question specifically about the parable of the 10 virgins, where the proof is to show that it was fulfilled and will be fulfilled, and how and why we're applying that. So is that addressed your question? Okay. So I'm going to erase all of that. And the reason I brought out 7 thunders, because it says the same. The 7 thunders were, was, and will be. Yeah, I've already said I'm not going to address that because I want to sort of keep us focused on this issue.
So just while you're working it out, I found this quote pretty interesting. She says, "The events connected with the close of probation and the work of preparation have been clearly presented."
Yeah, do you want to give us that quote?
GC 594.1.
594.1. So my contention is when it says it's clearly presented in the scriptures, but then she says at the back end of that passage,
but most Jews have no more understanding of these important truths than if they had never been revealed.
Yeah, so they're all in the scripture, clearly being revealed in scripture, but we don't understand it. We for some reason we're not picking it up. And so that's what the issue is here, because you don't understand, God's people don't understand the time of the end. Therefore, we're not able to get clarity on all of this.
There's another quote as well that the 3 angels' messages are to be combined, giving their threefold light to the world. In Revelation, John says, "I saw another angel come down from heaven, and a great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory." Revelation 18 quoted. This represents the giving of the last threefold message of warning to be given to the world.
Reference?
Reference is 7 BC 985.
So that passage there says that those three angels, these three steps, are going to be combined with the third. Not just one's going to be combined with this one, all three are going to be combined at the end of the world in this, I think it's something like 3 steps. Threefold. This threefold work is going to be combined with the third angel and give it power. But it's going to happen in a progressive step. Time at the end, then the second, then the third. So, we're in agreement thus far with everything, okay? So, I'm not going to have time to prove all this, but I'll lay out what it is, and I'll lay out some of the reasoning. So, if we're okay, the time of the end is 1989, yeah? In this history here, Daniel, what? 8:14 was unsealed. And what was this unsealing of the book of Daniel that we said? Day equals a year. It was unsealed in relation to time. So we should expect in our history an unsealing of the book of Daniel. So the unsealing I'm saying that's happening here is Daniel 11 verses 40 to 45. This information was unsealed. So that's what's unsealed, and what is the principle that's unsealed in our history that gives us the keys to opening this information? So we've already discussed it already. Primarily, it's this, that at the time of the end, the king of the south fights against the king of the north, and then what's going to happen in the second part of the verse? The warfare is going to get repeated. And now you're going to get the king of the north coming against the king of the south. Okay? We're basing an understanding of our history based upon what principle or rule? Repeat. History repeats. So we're saying history is repeating. And the repeating begins in 1989 in agreement with Daniel 11 verse 40. And how many testimonies have we got for this? Here. How many testimonies have we got? One testimony. How many testimonies did you have here? Here. One. What do you need? The second one. So the second one comes down, and what rule are you going to use for this one? The same. Day equals a year, and then you're going to get the first is empowered. So we're saying history is repeating. So as we're running through history now, we need to see a repeat of history. If we see a repeat of history that's in connection with this history, what do we know? What do we know then? Then we know that this is correct and that this message is being empowered.
And we don't have to be ashamed.
Yeah.
So let's rubble this off. This one here. What happened in August 11th, 1840? Okay? There's a warfare that's going on. There's a warfare that's going on in the world, specifically in Europe. And the warfare is between the West and Islam. There's a warfare, a struggle going on in 1840. Russia's part of this group here.
Not 1989.
1840. Talking about. I'm talking about. I think is it Prussia.
Yeah.
Or is that German Empire? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not Russia.
Prussia, yeah.
Russia, not Russia.
I'm not familiar. If you can show me the history, then Russia's involved in 1840 in some warfare,
No,
because I'm not aware of it.
it's Prussia.
The four kingdoms are Prussia, England, UK, Britain.
Is it France and Austria?
Is it France? I think it's France and Austria. I'm going to put France and Austria. Anyway, there's a struggle between the West and Islam. And the end result of all of this is that radical Islam is restrained. This is the key point that I'm picking up from 1840. You can see in the working out of the history, the geographical struggle that's going on, the warfare between these different empires, and the end result that radical Islam is restrained from doing what it wants to do.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Parminder. I believe, I might be wrong in this, I remember reading in Daniel Revelation by Uriah Smith. He said the war was between Ottoman Empire and Egypt.
So there's a warfare. I'll explain to you. So when I explain, then you can go and check. Read Uriah Smith or go to Wikipedia or whatever. Okay. There's radical Islam. Okay, which is Egypt in that history, and they want to establish. How to spell this? A caliphate. They want to establish a caliphate. Now, a caliphate is an Islamic empire or government or nation which does not recognise man-made borders. Okay? If you want to use the terminology that we're used to today, it's a one-world government. So they want to evangelise the world, and the way they do it is by force. Okay? So they want to establish a one-world government, however we want to speak about the rights and wrongs there. And the word that they use is the caliphate. They want to establish a caliphate. And there's an obstacle for them to establish the caliphate. And the obstacle is the West. Because the West are so powerful, you need to overcome them. So they know the only way that's ever going to happen is you're not going to win the battle against the West via a naval attack. Because you just can't get the infantry across there. And everybody has known since time immemorial that if you want to beat the West, there's only two routes to go. There's only two ways to enter into the West. You either go from the Straits of Gibraltar, or you go the Straits of the Bosphorus Straits. They're the only two options that you've got. And by far the easiest way to do it is go by the Bosphorus Straits. It's far easier to do that. It's much easier to get into Europe that way. To get through the Bosphorus Straits, to get into Europe, you have to sort out Turkey, because that's the nation of Turkey. Now, Turkey is an Islamic state which is now in the decline in this history. So there's a warfare or struggle going on between radical Islam and I'm going to call it moderate Islam, which is Turkey. And the only reason this struggle is going on is not because they don't like Turkish people or they've got something against them. They want to use this as a stepping stone for their world domination. They do have a different agenda on top of that, is because these people are moderate, okay, and what we would call them would be liberals. And conservatives always want to bash liberals. You know, it's just a human nature thing. So there's that on top of it, that they're not keeping the code as they're supposed to in their eyes, because these are fundamentalists and these aren't. So they want to sort that out, but primarily they want to take over the world, and these people are going to be their stepping stone to get into it. So the West get involved in this argument, and they say to radical Egypt, before they can expand, because if they take over Turkey, their army is doubled, tripled, whatever. They've got a whole nation now who they're going to be turning into conscripts, and they've got their armies multiplied. So before any of that happens, the West go to radical Egypt and say, if you mess around with Turkey, we're going to come to war with you. And Egypt knows it's not ready to have a fight with Europe. As it stands, it would lose. So all Europe has to do is send a couple of gunships to, I think it's Cairo, is it the port, the major port in Egypt? Is it Cairo? Yeah? All you need to do is send a couple of gunships there, and you've got the whole country covered. So what they do is they send several ships over and they're threatening them. They're saying, make you move. And so essentially, radical Islam, Egypt, backs away from that fight. And when part of that agreement about the backing away from the fight was in exchange for all of this, Turkey has to relinquish something. And it has to relinquish two things essentially. First of all, to protect Europe, it has to move away from being an Islamic state to a secular state. So it's from that moment that you mark the switch over from an Islamic to a secular state. And they're one of the few Islamic secular countries. And it's to do with this history. The second thing they basically say, okay, we're now in subjugation to the West. So the West tell us what to do, what not to do. So they're a vassal state. So this is why we think it's the restraining of Turkey or the Ottoman Empire or the fall of the Ottoman Empire. We talk about the fall of the Ottoman Empire coming here. The reason they're fallen is because they now have been subjugated to the West. This is the price they pay for their protection. Blood money, if you like. They say, we'll pay you, we'll become your servants if you protect us. The same story about the Gibeonites when Israel goes into Canaan. They willingly become their servants to save their lives, and that's what happens here. Aaron.
We say that on August 11th, 1840 was when moderate Islam was restrained, Turkey. And then we say on September the 11th, radical Islam was restrained, which is Egypt. So wouldn't it be more correct to say on August 11th, 1840, Egypt was restrained?
It's radical Islam. Radical Islam that is restrained.
Okay, so I know you're going into more details on it, but I'm just picking up the prophetic way line here, because if you're going to go to
Egypt,
when you say September 11, you're talking about September 11, 1840, or September 11,
2001.
Okay.
That's when Egypt, more correctly, we should be saying Egypt was restrained, not Ottomans.
Here.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
In 1840, we always say the Ottoman Empire was restrained.
No, it's Egypt.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm explaining. That radical Islam was restrained, and moderate Islam or Turkey fell. It was the fall of the Ottoman Empire. They fell from their status of being an independent nation. They become a vassal state. So two things happen. They become a vassal state, and then radical Islam is restrained. So that's why I'm picking up that radical Islam is restrained. So I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
But we never mentioned Egypt is restrained. We always say the Ottomans were restrained.
I don't know who you mean we. Because I always do.
You always say it's Egypt.
Yes?
Is that radical Islam?
Oh.
I'm saying radical Islam. Radical Islam in this history is Egypt, not Turkey.
Okay.
So I'm picking up this concept of radical Islam is restrained. So the history that you brought up, I'm identifying the history, which I think is in agreement with your understanding of it. The dynamics of that are explained that at the end of the day, Egypt or radical Islam is restrained from doing its work of expansion. So all I'm going to do is pick up this issue here, right at that event, and I'm going to say this is going to be repeated at the end of the world.
So who is it that's restrained then?
So in our day and age, I'm going to write the same thing. Radical Islam is restrained. Radical Islam is restrained right here.
Who was restrained in 1840
Back here.
Both of them, Egypt and Turkey.
Egypt is restrained and they fall. But the point that needs to be brought out is that these are the ones that have got this vision for establishing a caliphate. These people don't.
So
It's this group that's restrained.
Egypt is restrained and Egypt represents Muslims.
Radical Islam.
Radical, not Muslims.
Okay.
No. At the end of the world, every nation, the 10 kings are going to give their kingdom to the woman. Yeah? And that includes all the nations of the earth. Radical Islam is not a country. It's not a country that you can say, oh, look on the map, it's that country X. It's an ideology. It's a caliphate that they want to establish. It's for Adventists, it's an independent ministry. If you want to use that, because then you can conceptualize what it is. It's an independent ministry. It's not part of the country structure.
So they couldn't, the radical Egyptians, they couldn't continue their work because the West was hating them with their military arm, and that gave the Turkey the ability to attack.
What we've got to understand is that this is a restraining of radical Islam. It's a restraining of radical Islam. It's not the fall of Turkey or the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, but I'm explaining. So I'm explaining that the fall of the Ottoman Empire happened, and I'm in agreement with that statement. But what is it? Why did the Ottoman Empire fall? Why was it forced to fall? It was forced to fall because it becomes a slave of the West. It becomes a slave of the West because the West are saying, "You want us to protect you? It's going to cost you something. You're going to fall."
That makes sense.
So the West was involved in preventing that, in preventing giving the restraining, basically. They're the ones that restrain them.
They're the ones that are restraining, not involved in it. They're the major players.
In 1838, though, the prophecy was relating to the Ottoman Empire, wasn't it?
Yes.
Not to Egypt.
No,
Right, so there's significance in that, isn't there?
there is, because if you want to go back into the history of that, if you want to go 391 years, 15 days, is that correct? Yeah? If you go back to this history, Christ is the Alpha and Christ is the Omega. He tells you the end from the beginning. So at the end, you've got the West coming and subjugating the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
The West are subjugating the Ottoman Empire. They say, "We hire and fire your king." If you go back 391 years, 15 days to this event, in 1449, you're going to see the reverse of that. This is
Yes.
Constantinople, and in this history here, the Ottoman Empire are saying, "We're going to hire and fire your king." So what happened here, the opposite happens here, the Alpha and Omega. So the significance of why that's important to see about the fall of the Ottoman is important, so that's why I'm introducing it here. But the background of that in this history is all brought about because of this radical Islam. If they weren't doing anything, they would have left Turkey to their own devices. There's a confluence of events that are all occurring. History is being fulfilled on a number of different levels. So the Alpha is being fulfilled in the Omega. Ottoman Empire are going to fall because they've got this fall that they now become subservient, but it's all due to this radical Islamic state wanting to do its thing. So this is what's been identified, the restraint of radical Islam. So it's not the intricacies of Turkey and they become subjugated and we're going to say, well, that means Iran or Iraq or there's some other Islamic country that, sorry? Afghanistan, yeah, that was the one I was thinking of, Afghanistan. All this fighting that's going on there is some kind of antitype of this fall or something. What's been identified is restraining of radical Islam.
So things like ISIS.
Yeah, so Al-Qaeda is not a state-sponsored organisation. They're an independent ministry. ISIS are the same. All of these powers are the same. They're nothing to do with government.
It's interesting actually because recently on the news, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but they've changed Tony Blair's job now from being whoever he was to being the guy that's going to take control and restrain Islam. That's what it said.
I haven't seen that.
Turkey was the second one, and Josiah Litch predicted the fall of Turkey. And it was Turkey warring against the army of Rome.
No, Turkey is not warring against the army of Rome. Radical Islam. Turkey aren't having a fight with the West.
The Ottomans were the second row.
Oh, you mean at the end or at the beginning?
At the beginning for an hour, a day, a month, and a year.
Okay.
So it's Turkey that's restrained because they're the second row. The second row power has to be restrained.
I've just explained what the restraining of them are.
Of Turkey.
they become subjugated to the West as the West was subjugated to them.
Okay, so we do say Turkey is restrained.
Turkey falls, but the restraining is of radical Islam. And at that history, Turkey is not radical Islam.
So the hour, the day, the month, and the year does not predict the restraining of...
It predicts the fall of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire falls at that day.
But not the restraining of the Ottoman Empire.
Because they're not restrained. Radical Islam is restrained.
It actually says that in a very controversial. It says it's the fall of the Ottoman Empire.
And I showed you how both events are Biant Empire. But what I'm picking out, so I'm picking out that it's radical Islam that's restrained. And we're going to take this element and we're going to place it into our history. That radical Islam is restrained. And radical Islam is restrained at 9/11, where the West, now you're going to say the whole United Nations, because this is representative of the number 4. There are 4 of these nations, and 4 is a worldwide phenomena. Number 4 is a symbol of worldwide. So this number 4, the whole world, is going to come against radical Islam, not against a specific country. The country hosts them, they're just going to go into the country. So when they go into Afghanistan, they're not going to Afghanistan to destroy the government. In fact, they're going to bolster the government. They're going after radicalised Islamists. They're going to attack this independent ministry, this caliphate. So that's what I'm identifying at 9/11. And once you see that this event has been prefigured in this event, so history is repeated, Islam is restrained, then you know that history is actually repeating, and that we have now definitely entered into the repeat of this history. Right here is being fulfilled. Lee.
One of you guys here, sorry Lee, one of you guys here said that 9/11, right, was not the first angel was empowered, it was the second angel, because Babylon is fallen.
I'll explain that as well if you want in a minute. I'm going to explain that. Lee.
I was saying that in the Ottoman Empire, just a bit of history to refresh my memory. You said Turkey weren't threatening anybody, weren't doing, or the Ottoman Empire weren't doing. I think they were attacking at the time.
Okay.
They were still waging war with others at that time, and they had to sign over, following the threat of Egypt. They cooperated in signing it because they could see that Egypt was going to crush them, and they agreed with the West, that they would sign over their power and end their empire. They just decided to totally dissipate their empire and say, okay, it's no more. But they were waging war at that time. They were attacking fellow nations. They were into Greece and other areas, weren't they? Macedonia.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. Yeah, with the intricacies of their history.
So the point I'm making by saying that is that we say that it's radical Islam and moderate Islam, but Islam as a whole are moving against the West.
Yes.
Right? So there is a 2-step approach from Islam, one moderate, one radical. And that's what we can identify from this then. There is 2 attacks from Islam. It's not one.
Okay, I'm happy to put that down. Yeah?
I can understand it.
So what I'll do is I'll take this out then here, and I'll just say Islam is restrained. If we're okay with that.
Is that all Muslims then? Is that what that means?
Yeah, I would say so.
Because there wasn't any such thing as
But there are some in Islam which
In this history here,
that will come out of that, by the way.
I'm sure.
there are.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
But close it down.
Okay.
So there are radical Islamists in this time period.
Sorry, just
Yeah.
if we didn't accept that point, and I'm not saying we have to, but if we didn't accept that point, we would reduce the prophecy, the prediction in 1838 and its power as well, and the fact that that might have a future application in our time now also.
Yeah.
I think we should do that either.
So I'm happy to Let's just leave it at Islam is restrained. And if we're going to say the expansionist ideology of Turkey was curtailed, as was that of Egypt. So, at 9/11, this history here is being repeated, and the first angel's message is now empowered. Okay. When we come back to this history here, Revelation 18. This is the time of the end, but it's also 9/11. I think I'd want them looking this direction, but you keep on giving them information that direction. So why not keep everybody together? Or bring it here because I can share it with everybody.
You are sharing it. It's the same.
Okay. So, this first angel's message is going to come in two parts, okay? There's going to be its arrival and its empowerment. God can't test his people here. Because you haven't got testimony of two, you only got testimony of one. So he can only test them here. So the test begins here. Revelation chapter 10 marks the eating of the book, which is the eating of information. So this is where the test really begins. So in Revelation 18, even though we can mark the arrival because of the time of the end, because it has to mirror this Revelation 18 verse 1 is really marking its empowerment in its truest sense.
Could it really start to 9/11?
It can't start until 9/11 right here. So at 9/11, what is the thing that marks 9/11? It's an attack on buildings in New York. So if you go to 9 Testimonies, pick up from page 11. There's another reference. I can't remember what the other reference is.
Someone could read that statement, actually.
Correct?
Someone could read that statement, please.
Someone find that statement. There's a couple. She predicts that when the great buildings are brought down, and she told you who brings the buildings down. She said they're brought down by the hand of God. Or I think she says the overturning of God. So she tells you it's God that's doing that, not man. So she says when that happens, something's going to be fulfilled. And she tells you it's these verses here, verses 1, 2 and 3 will be fulfilled. So I'll just finish the point, then I'll give you, then if you can read it out for us. So she says, when this happens here, all of this is going to be fulfilled. Before I get to read the statement, let's go to Revelation 14, verses 6 till 9. And we're not going to read the verses, but if you read verse 6, it says, Revelation 14, it says, I saw another angel. Verse 6, another angel. If you read verse 8, it says, another angel. And you read verse 9, it says another angel. So you've got 3 individual angels. So if you go to Revelation 18 now, it doesn't mark it out that way. In Revelation 18, you're only going to see 2 angels, not 3. Because in verse 1, it says, I saw another angel. Then in verse 2, what's the first word in verse 2?
He cried.
He. So who is the he?
That angel.
The angel. So verses 1, 2 and 3 are the same angel. Then verse 4 says, I heard another voice. So there's only 2 voices or 2 angels. So in Revelation 18, this is the first one, and this is the second one. First and second. So you can see in the verses itself, when this one comes down, when he comes down, he's going to be speaking there and then, and he's saying something. Babylon is fallen.
This is the second angel then, really?
Both.
It's the first and second.
It's the first and second.
Okay.
So when he comes down,
Oh yeah, because he has the first one and the second one. I mean, another one.
you're going to have the first angel and the second angel, and they come down at the same time. Come down at the same time because it's the same person. So please read the verse, Sister Shibboleth.
New Herald, July 5th, 1906. How comes the word that I have declared that New York is to be swept away by a tidal Scenes will take place, the fearfulness of which we cannot imagine.
Okay, so she's saying when the great buildings of New York fall, and they fell at 9/11, which is...
Statement, no, there's one that says about the engines couldn't.
This one is that's New Testament.
Yeah.
This one is identifying that Revelation 18:1 to 3 is being fulfilled.
So there's a couple of statements that brought out. We're identifying that Islam is restrained. Islam is restrained is the empowerment of the message. So when you see Islam is restrained, it should be the empowerment of the message in the same way. Then you just see what event was connected with the restraining of Islam. It was due to 9/11, the buildings falling down in New York. So if you're going to follow this history, you know that it's to do with the first angel's message, it's empowerment. The test begins. This is where the test begins, right here, when he comes down, because the earth is lightened with his glory, in agreement with Revelation 10. And then you have a passage that backs that up. So the passage says, when the buildings of New York are brought down by God, then these two angels are fulfilled. Sorry, these two messages are fulfilled. Single angel. And you see it in the verses. Because when he comes down, he's got the message, it's the same person. So it gives you the right to say, when the buildings come down, Revelation 18, 1 to 3 is fulfilled. Revelation 18, 1 to 3 is the first and second angel's message.
What we're thinking of is Testimonies, Volume 9,
Yeah.
page 11.
Yes.
So that's not accidental, 9:11. And when you go over to paragraph 13, sorry, page 13, it says, the scene that passed next before me, which was after the buildings going down, the buildings in New York, it said, the next scene that passed before me was an alarm of fire. Men looked at the lofty and supposedly fireproof buildings and said they are perfectly safe, but these buildings were consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay the destruction. The firemen were unable to operate the engines. So I think that's the one.
Thank you.
So that's why you've heard from somebody say the second angel's message came down as well. I'm going to redraw this out here, but kind of in a simpler way. I've got 1A, 1E. When 1E happens, 2A comes down. The midnight cry is the empowerment of the second angel's message. We're going to have a midnight cry here too. Midnight cry is 2E. So we're going to have a 2E.
Has that happened yet?
No. We're in the process of it. I'll explain that in a second. When 2E happens, we're going to get 3A. You know what 3A is? 3.
Someone in this group, how come who told me the midnight cry happening now?
I'm going to explain that it's not, but it's not an event, it's a process as well. Okay? The third angel's message arrives, then the third angel's message is empowered, and there's no more angels, there's no more messages, we've come to the end, because the third is empowered, as it was not done here.
Sorry, can you just, you know when you put up here, Revelation 18,
There.
right, first angel, second angel message, and first angel, third angel message.
Yes.
Right? Is that relating to Revelation 14?
Yep. If it's the first angel, second angel, third angel. It's the everlasting gospel.
And then underneath you put one, but then you put them two as a first angel. That's to do with Revelation 18.
Okay, what I'm trying to say here,
Because I'm just putting it, because I'm looking at that chart you put over there. You put in 9/11, it's the empowerment of the first angel. It's also the empowerment of the institution of the first.
I'm just laying this out in the way the verses are laid out.
I know, but I'm trying to make sure.
Yeah. So what I explained verbally, but I didn't show pictorially here. If you want me to show it pictorially, you'd lay it out this way. If you want to lay those verses out in that way, this is how I would lay it out then. You'd say first angel, second angel, third angel. And you'd say Revelation 18, verses 1, then 18, 2 to 3, then 18, 4. If you want to do it that way. This one, in time, happens at the same time.
Yeah, that's fine. Then on this one,
Doing the same thing. When I'm putting this A, I'm just saying angel's message.
so you're putting the Revelation 14 angels and the Revelation 18 angels together in the same place, but it's 9/11.
What I'm saying is, Revelation 18, here, this one and this one, this is that. Yeah? That is this. This here, well, not Revelation 14, this is Revelation 18. Because Revelation 14, starting off here, and it's going all the way through. This is Revelation 14, verses 9 to 11. This is the third angel. Because the Revelation 14, but the wording is the same. The wording is the same, 14 and 18, exactly the same, because it's the everlasting gospel. But we're using because we're in the history of the empowerment that we're addressing this. So the midnight cry happens here. The second angel's message is empowered, and then you're going to get the third arriving, and then this is the third empowered. What is the third angel's message? It's the message of the Sunday law. Message of the Sunday law. So when does the Sunday law arrive? According to this model here. At the midnight cry. At the midnight cry it arrives. Okay? So that's in agreement with Spirit of Prophecy. It's agreement with Spirit of Prophecy that it arrives. This is National Sunday law. This is the National Sunday law. National Sunday law is here. And the Sunday laws begin here, but it's not the perfect fulfillment, it's the arrival of it. So this is what we call blue law. So you're going to get blue laws progressively getting worse in this history. This is blue law. And blue law is an uplifting of Sunday, which is a type, not a perfect type, but it's a type of the third angel's message. You know, in Great Controversy, I believe it is, that she says there are going to be these labour laws that come through. There's going to be an escalation of the struggle and the warfare that's going to happen.
Sorry, you've got the first angel arriving at 9/11, is that right?
No, I'm just putting the first angel.
Oh, angel, sorry.
Okay, so
Sorry.
I'm going to put angel's message. So these are these.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I've already identified that it arrives here. If you want me to do it this way, then I'll put first empowered, second arrives. If that helps. That makes it more clear. So I'm saying the arrival happens here, and it's going to mark the beginning of the blue laws. Not the perfect Sunday law, but the type of Sunday law. And then by the time it's empowered, this is the true national Sunday law, and now this time period is the day of the Lord. And what is the Lord's day? Sabbath. This is the seventh day. And we're now living in this time period here, which is the day of the Lord's preparation. We're living in the sixth day. Garen.
I understand where you're coming from with what you're sharing, but the Sunday law is more enforced or empowered, shall I say, when Satan appears. That's not acting on any chance.
What's been identified here? What's been identified here is when the Sunday law issue is fulfilled in history. This is the seventh day. The seventh day doesn't begin and end here. It begins here and it ends here. It ends when Michael stands up. I'll put Daniel 12:1. And it's towards this time period here where Satan is going to manifest himself. Is the Sunday law going to get worse? Of course it is. But this marks the Sunday law. This marks the point where the government is going to say, we are now legislating, first in America, then in the world. It's a two-step process. they're going to say you are forbidden from keeping Sabbath sacred. And
it's Satan that helps to enforce that around the world. It says that in here.
of course it does, but Satan doesn't come here. This is the waymark that we're marking, because this is when probation begins to close upon God's people. First in America, then in the world. And when light measures don't work, like they're going to coerce you to do this thing, they're going to encourage you to do it, then they're going to start applying more pressure. And when that pressure doesn't work, then Satan's going to manifest himself. Because he's going to manifest himself here, and he's going to say, I'm telling you straight, if you're a Christian, that the Lord's day is Sunday. And this little group over there have got it all wrong. And that's what's going to make things even worse for us. But it doesn't happen here. If you check when it happens, it's not at the beginning. It's well into this history. And not only that, it's not only Satan that's going to manifest himself. He's going to go to all the religions of the world. Because this world isn't going to be a Christian world. You can go to any religion and they've all got their messiahs. They've all got someone at the end of the world. And they're going to manifest themselves. Whatever your fancy is, that's what you're going to see. And he's going to say, yes, you need to listen to the man of sin. He's the one that's in control. He's the one that you need to listen to.
So as soon as the National Sunday law is enforced, that's when national ruling takes place in America, right?
National ruling begins here. Because when you make a blue law and you enforce it, and you say, you have to reverence this day, you're going to start receiving pain from God. Then they're going to say, oh, we're receiving pain from God. Then wherever it's coming from, we're receiving pain. We need to tighten up our Sunday laws because we're even more lax. So they're going to restrain it now. They're going to go from 4 o'clock opening to 2 o'clock opening to 1, and then they're going to realise, actually, we shouldn't be opening at all. If we stop opening, God's going to stop touching us. So now they're going to stop opening at all on Sunday, and they're uplifting Sunday even more. You uplift Sunday even more, even if you don't touch Sabbath, God's going to punish you, because you're into apostasy now. So the apostasy, the punishment's going to be light, but it's going to increase. When you get here, and then you start touching the Sabbath issue, then you know, then things are going to be unleashed upon you. What we know here, is this event here, when the test began, Islam was loosed. Islam was loosed, it was restrained straight away. And when it was loosed, what did it do to the world? It brought the world almost to its knees. In fact, it has really brought it to its knees, but what we're doing is printing money and keeping everything afloat. But the whole world is in a total financial mess. And all that they did to do that, all they did, and I don't mean this in any kind of, disrespectful way, they blew down 2 towers. And the blowing down of the 2 towers has wrecked the world economy. Everything changed. The midnight cry here, you can show in scripture that there's a doubling happens here. This is a 1, and then it doubles. So when Islam begins to attack here, and it's going to, Amen. They're gonna attack twice as hard as they ever attacked here. And when they do that, it's going to bring the world economy down. And when the world economy comes down, the world's going to start thinking, why are we in trouble? And they're going to switch over from this liberal idea that they have of what's going on, this atheistic mentality, and they're going to come to start worshipping God. And when you worship God, the only thing that you're not keeping is Sunday. You keep all 9 other commandments.
But the world won't be thinking that way.
When I say the world, I'm talking America. All is America. When America goes down, it's going to take the whole world with it. America runs the world. However way we might want to think. So when America starts making these decisions, we're required to see what's in store for us. We could be reasonably happy, but once America starts suffering, if they adjust their interest rates, we have to follow suit. We can't just say independent, and no one in the world can say independent of what America does. If America prints billions and billions of dollars, everyone suffers. True. So when they get attacked, that attack is going to mess the economy so much, they're going to have to start taking measures. And the measures are going to be based upon an understanding that they're breaking God's law. Sunday worship, the Lord's Day.
Saying radical Islam, or everyone call it Islam, is going to attack America and bring down the economy.
So when you went here, 1838, I'm saying there's a prediction that's being made now about radical Islam.
Double the twin
There's a prediction that's being made. I'm predicting it now.
for the blue laws.
I'm predicting now that there's going to be an attack at the midnight cry. It's going to be double what we got there, whatever double that means. So there's a prediction that's being made about radical Islam.
Where are you getting the 6th day from and the 7th day?
I'm just using it as typification.
Because that was
You go in the book of Joel, it says in the day of the Lord's preparation, I think it's in the book of Joel, type in the day of the Lord's preparation. In the day of the Lord's preparation, you're supposed to weep and mourn, weep and cry between the portions. So that's what I'm saying, we're in this time period here. It says when the trumpet blows. The trumpet blew at 9/11.
Well, I thought that the 7th day, that starts. Then I wouldn't put it in Sunday law, I'll put it when Jesus comes back and the earth gets its rest.
I understand you're using the 6,000 year and the 7,000 year. I'm not arguing. I'm not in opposition to that. All I'm saying is that if you're going to say that 9/11 Sunday law to Daniel 12:1, Michael standing up. This is the Sunday law time period, and the Sunday law is a fight against the Lord's day. This is to do with the day of the Lord. Scripture talks about it being the day of the Lord. And what does all Christianity believe? What is the Lord's day? It's Sunday. So you can clearly see this is a reference to the 7th day. And this is a reference, therefore, must be the 6th day. What are we supposed to be doing now? Preparing for the Sunday worship, preparing for Sabbath. Sorry? So I'm not arguing with that. The reason I bring the 6th and the 7th up, because there are other lines of truth that we need to understand. Because what happens on the 6th day in the book of Genesis? In the book of Genesis, what's the first thing that happens on the 6th day, or at the beginning of the 6th day? Man was made, and then what else happens on the 6th day after he's been made? They get married. So we're going to see a marriage here. There's two institutions that come out of Eden. Marriage and Sabbath. The marriage happens on the 6th day, the Sabbath is on the 7th day, and they're all going to be brought, the Alpha is going to be brought to the Omega, and so in our history we're going to see something about marriage going on. We're going to see something about marriage going on. And there's many things about the marriage. Lee?
Just some thoughts on the financial collapse in the world. The Twin Towers collapse in the economy was symbolic only. The financial economy had already collapsed, but it symbolises a time of that collapse. If you remember from the government reports at the time and the news reports at the time, that all the major country leaders met and they injected billions into the economy at that time to prop up the money system that had already failed. So the money system has already failed. In the next event, that will be, I believe, again symbolic and a further revelation that it has actually failed. Nobody walking around at the moment believes that it's already failed. It has. There is no money left. It's only the money that's been injected into the economy. That money will run out, and it may well be that it just happens to run out at the next signifying point. So it's not actually what Islam is doing, which is, in my belief, is absolutely collapsing the world economies. It's symbolic of the collapse that is already there. It's revealing that collapse. So slightly different take on it. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that, but that's my understanding.
George? Claudette?
I was just going to say that for the Saturday events, there will be no more preparation after the midnight cry. You will have to be prepared before.
For some of us.
Yes.
Preparation day ends here. Preparation day ends here. But for some of us, on Friday, you know you're going to get busy in the afternoon. So when you want to do your washing, ironing and cleaning? In the morning. Because you're going to be busy in the afternoon. You've got a Bible study in the afternoon, and it's going to run hard up onto Sabbath, so you better cook your food in the morning. But your neighbour, Seventh-day Adventist friend, they're on the shift and they're working on Friday morning and they're going home at 12 o'clock. So they're going to do all their preparation in the afternoon. So different Adventists are going to be sorted out differently. But by the time Sabbath happens, everybody needs to be ready. Some need to be ready here, and some are going to get ready here. But that's a bit more of a detailed study to know where that is. But the concept is there. Not everybody gets ready at the same time, but everybody must be ready by that time. Some of us need to be ready at this time because we're going to be busy here.
What's that time?
Thomas? No? Oh. Okay. So, there's this prediction that you were asking about before. We're predicting that at the midnight cry, Islam's going to attack.
And it's going to be bigger.
Because of the blue law.
It's going to be bigger.
Because of the blue law.
Because this is the empowerment of the second. When you see number 2, it's indicating a double strike. You can show that in various imagery and stories in the scriptures. What I can do if you want is just going to rub some of this off. Yeah, okay, to rub some of this off. I'm going to rub this off. If you want to see something, what we spoke about earlier, this is the 6th and 7th day. What happens on the 6th day? Marriage. 7th day, Sabbath. So in the 6th day, the day we're living, you're going to see something about marriage. Marriage is between a man, a woman and a man. Okay, a woman is a representation of a church, and a man is a representation of a king. Or a state. So you've got church and state. Church and state, the definition of church and state is the image of the beast. Speaking about this over lunch. The image of the beast, its definition is a combination of church and state with the church in control.
So that means we're very close.
So the image of the beast, Ellen White says, the great test that's going to come upon God's people, if someone wants to find that passage, the great test is not Sabbath. The great test is not Sabbath, because by the time you get to Sabbath, you're going to have already developed your character, and now you're going to demonstrate it. You're going to demonstrate your character.
The Sabbath is the test for the people of God.
I'm not saying that it's not the test. Sunday law identifies the groups, and this is where the seal is complete. The seal is complete here. If you want me to word it a different way, I can word it a different way. There's going to be a great test before Sabbath. If you want to interpret the way what she's saying, where you're going to say there's going to be a great test before the Sabbath test, because she uses the word great and she uses the word test. I'm not trying to say it's the only test, but she says there's a great test, and we can add in before the great Sabbath test or before the Sabbath test. I'm not trying to diminish the Sabbath test, but there is a test that comes before Sabbath. That's all I'm saying. So, sorry? Let me ask this question then. When does close of probation happen for Adventists? Okay, so let's mark this as close of probation, because she doesn't use the word Sabbath in the quote. Read the quote then.
The Lord has shown me clearly that the image of the beast will be formed before probation.
We'll stop there. So the image of the beast, if that's close of probation, if this is close of probation here, COP, when is the image of the beast going to be formed? So it has to be in this day here. Okay, so we've got that. Then what's she say?
For it is to be the great test for the people of God, by
So
which